Okay, and welcome back once again to the Fletch Entertainment Network. It's an interesting people episode with a gentleman that I am a proud person to know and meet and pretty much call a friend. We're going to get to know each other a little more tonight. It's Braden Richards. I know Braden from he is a delegate in the World Cubing Association, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and which is basically people that take these things when they're mixed up and put them together the correct way. So. Braden is also a just recent graduate of Ohio State. Is that correct? Just
Yep.
2024, right?
Yep. Graduated in
Okay.
May.
Awesome. So, Braden, welcome to the show. Real quick, people, anybody that's doing this either live or on demand, Facebook, give me a like, and YouTube, hit the bell and give me a subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the things that we're doing here at the Fletch Entertainment Network. And I say we, I mean me. So, so you had just gotten off work earlier today. Where do you work, if you can say, unless you're
I got a job at DHL. I started yesterday actually, so
okay.
It's only my second day. But first job out of college, pretty exciting, pretty nervous, but overall it's going okay.
Is it in your field of study that you studied with in college, kind of a thing, or?
Yes.
Awesome.
So I studied industrial engineering, and I am a process engineer.
Okay. Very good.
Performance engineer, process engineer. They kind of go hand in hand. But yeah.
Okay. Excellent. It's nice to hear some people get out of college and they have to take a job that has nothing to do with what their major was. So it's, so it's nice to hear that. So are you originally an Ohio kid?
Yes. Grew up in Findlay.
Okay. Nice.
For those who may not know where that is, it's basically just south of Toledo. If you know where Toledo is, you'll know where Findlay is.
Yep. Of course I'm in Dayton, so I drive up 70.
Yep.
So yeah, Findlay is absolutely south of Toledo 175. Sorry, 75.
I used to go to Dayton all the time because that's where my sister went to college. So just take 75 the whole way.
UD?
Yeah, UD.
Oh, okay.
The Flyers.
Oh yeah, great school. Love the Flyers. I pretty much grew up in this town. So born in Texas, moved here when I was 5, and pretty much lived there ever since, with a couple of stops in Florida and this team up north. The state up north for some bad reason. My dad got transferred there, but it was the black hole.
You're saying you get to know me. I'm knowing more about you now. This is fun.
I do have a tendency to talk too much, so I want to make sure we stick on topic, but it's all fun.
I listen more than I talk. Hope sometimes. I mean, it depends.
So let's go cubing first. How old were you when you got into cubing, and either as just a mere hobby or really into it?
So I knew the cube existed from a pretty young age. Like my dad had one. My siblings, they had like one of the old, really like stickered Rubik's cubes. My dad had one in where was it? It was somewhere upstairs, and he would get it out occasionally, but no one knew how to solve it fully in our family. My dad could do the first 2 layers, but I didn't want to do any of that. So January of 2016, I believe, was the year I went to. So before I was into cubing, I was into magic, like not the card game magic, but like actual magician stuff. And well before I was into cubing, when I was like 8, 9, 10, I would attend Magi Fest, which is the largest magic convention in North America. And it's in Columbus, which is really, really nice because I didn't have to go very far. But in 2016, there was a magician by the name of Stephen Brundage, who you might know from America's Got Talent. He did the Rubik's Cube act on America's Got Talent. Yeah. And
root for him.
I met him before. I think it was before he was on America's Got Talent. I'm not sure if it was before or after, but either way, super cool to meet him. And his tricks all revolved around the cube. And when I went and saw his like initial show lecture, because at Magi Fest, they don't just have shows, they have lectures, they have seminars, stuff like that. I got one of his tricks, which came with a normal Rubik's Cube, not one of the Rubik's brands, but I think it was a Sheng Shao Aurora, but it was branded in his like magic stuff. And in order to do the tricks, you had to know how to solve the cube, because if you messed up, you had a scrambled cube. You couldn't really do any of the tricks until you had to solve the cube. So part of the trick was learning how to solve it. And my dad was there with me, and he knew how to do the first 2 layers. So he taught me the first 2 layers with his own method. And then I learned last layer from the Stephen Brundage video. Which, going back, that video wasn't honestly the most helpful. It was like beginner's last layer. Like I'm sure most people have learned, where you do like you orient the edges, orient the corners, permute the edges, and then do this to solve the corners. It was very slow. I learned that initially. but it got the job done. And I eventually learned how to do the tricks. Like if you have a scrambled cube up here, you can just kind of solve it like that.
I remember him doing that.
yeah. No, put it in a bag and it comes out solved. Put it in a bag,
Yes.
solved. It comes out scrambled. It's all those tricks were kind of in that set that I got.
Nice.
And I got to actually cube with him at the after party
wow.
of Magi Fest, and he raced me one-handed, and I did two-handed, and he still beat me. So that was kind of my introduction to cubing or speed cubing, even though it wasn't speed oriented. But after that, I don't want to say I was obsessed, because at that point I didn't even know competitions were a thing. I just knew that it was a fun toy that I enjoyed solving when I didn't have a deck of cards on me. So I took it with me to middle school. I was in 8th grade. And eventually, after I graduated middle school, I went to high school, which my middle school was a different school compared to the high school. So when I went to my high school, Findlay High School, I met Stephen Windringham, who you might know as a cuber from Ohio, a very good peer minxer, now works for the Cubicle. And at the time, he had been cubing for much longer than I had known about cubing. He started in 2015 or so, and I met him in 2016. So he at least had some experience. But when we met in study hall, which was really just luck. Like we didn't know each other before that. And I saw he had a cube. He saw I had a cube. We sat next to each other and then spent study hall just solving cubes. He like would show me algorithms I didn't even know existed. He showed me a different beginner's tutorial where would actually solve the corners in a not like super long way. And eventually started showing me what F2L was, showed me other puzzles, and eventually showed me the World Cube Association, which is where I eventually found my next passion.
So was he already in the WCA?
Yes, he competed in, I want to say it was a Dayton competition. It was either Dayton or some Southern Indiana comp, but it was around there. And he really enjoyed it, especially Pyraminx. He was still into Pyraminx back then. And so he got me interested in doing that. I didn't have a Pyraminx, but I did have a 2x2. So I brought that. And eventually a competition was announced in Michigan, in Ann Arbor, back when the Michigan Cubing Club would have all those competitions. For people watching this that are, I guess, more, what's the word? Like they're older than me, that have been cubing for longer. Michigan, or the University of Michigan, that college we don't talk about. They had competitions well before Ohio State did. They had a club that was really popular. Kit Clement went there. Stanley Chappell also used to go to, I think he might still go to U of M, but a lot of competitions up there. And Steven convinced me to go to a competition with him. So I went in March of 2017. I learned how to do Scube on the way there. And I competed in it. And yeah, the rest is basically history. Went to a couple of competitions after that, but I think I only went to 5 or 6 my first year. After that, started kind of ramping up. COVID kind of accelerated my liking of cubing, and then became a delegate. Yeah.
Wow. Let me real quick. My kids always love to make an appearance.
Hello.
Okay, that's Lexi. She's my 10-year-old.
Oh, well, hi, Lexi.
And Emma, she'll probably pop in here a little bit. She's come to a few of the earlier competitions with me when I started, and she was at Ohio State with me, and it was on a Saturday morning, and it was up high, like 3 or 4. It was in the whatever that student thing is where all the workout machines are. The
RPAC. Oh yeah, so it was the Recreation and Physical Activity Center. That must have been Ohio State fall 2023. I'm pretty sure.
I think it was when they had gray and scarlet.
Okay. No, yeah, that was 2022. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so and Emma was there, and you were doing your preview tutorial thing to people.
Which at that time I wasn't even a delegate. I was just an organizer that held the competitions.
Oh, okay. Well, you had said, does anybody have any questions? And of course, she's way in the back, and she's raising her hand. She wants to know where the bathroom was. I was like, Emma, it's questions for the cubers. So she's funny. She's funny. So anyways, yeah, do that. That's amazing stuff, man. It's what I really like most of anything about what I do is I love being surprised. I don't have all, you watch those shows at night and they got all the questions made for them. I love finding this stuff out. That's great. So what the Brandbridge? What was his last name? The guy from AGT.
Stephen Brundage.
Brundage, yeah, I totally remember him being on there. I'm like, I'm rooting for him to go all the way. I know he won't, but I'm rooting for him to go all the way and stuff. So you've only been a delegate since during or just after COVID, I guess, right?
Yeah, 2023. I forget the exact day I was promoted, but it was in the first couple weeks of January.
Okay. I think it was 20. I started in 23. I had a surgery in January.
Okay.
Yeah, I started in January. Well, sorry, I should say I had a surgery in January, and then I started paying attention to my cubes more because I had some downtime from being, at home for a few weeks. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to, I go back to 82, and I had the old cube and friends in the neighborhood. This is when they really hit the popularity. We would put Vaseline in them to try to be easier to cube, the Vaseline and stuff to make it easier to cube and all that.
Yep, Vaseline.
And if you were like 2 minutes, you were like fast, like in our neighborhood, stuff. But anyways, it's something I've over the years, every once in a while, I used to be really big into astronomy. I still kind of am. I used to be a member of the club here and stuff, and I got a couple of telescopes, and I went to a astronomy Christmas party. It was one of those white elephant gifts. Everybody brings something and you all pass them around, whatever. So I bought a cube, and I said, if worst comes to worst, I'm going to make sure I steal it back, and then I'll walk out of here with something I like. And that's exactly what I did. I walked out of here with the cube I bought, and I'll solve it just to remind myself I know how to solve it. And I always remembered all those old algorithms, although we didn't call them that back then. We just, learning how to solve it. But so I started, I was home with the kids, and they saw my cube, and they're like, what's that? I'm like, it's this, and I will solve it. And they're like, you're pretty quick. I'm like, that's nothing. I said, here, watch this. And I didn't even know what I was looking at. I put it on YouTube on the TV, and I said,
Rubik's Cube.
Solving Rubik's Cube or something. Yeah. And Felix Zemdegs comes up, who I don't even know who he is at the time. And it's the one where the camera's right in front of him, and he does it in like 4-some seconds, and it's the world record, and all the kids come in doing this, And I was like, oh my gosh, look how fast they do it now. I'm like, that's nuts, And then I happened to see Eli Miller. I'm pretty sure you know who he is.
Yeah, Eli's a really good, really funny Cincinnati.
Oh yeah, he had gone to the same church that I'd gone to. His kids knew he knew my kids, I should say, the same age and stuff. Mm-hmm. His daughter is my same age as Lexi. And I saw him coming out of on Facebook is coming out of a competition. I'm like, and his mom, Shannon, had put it on there. So I texted her. I'm like, does your kid go to a cubing competition? I'm like, they have them around here. I didn't even know this. So I'm like, I am in this. I got to do this. Yeah. So it is pretty interesting in the beginning when I was like a bunch of 4th and 5th graders. They're all looking at me, and one kid's like, are you competing? I'm like, yeah. But I don't mind. It's fun. So
yeah.
So
you're from the original generation of people that, like, back when they were called cubists instead of cubers.
Right. Cube heads or whatever. But yeah. It's fun. I mean, it is nice. There's a nice good blend of all different generations and all these things. So it's a lot of fun to go to. There's no doubt. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions I had for you was, have you ever been to a world's competition?
I have not been to a world championship. I've been to a lot of the national championships. The first worlds I plan on going to is actually next year, since it's in the US. I don't actually have a passport. Even I've been to Canada, but I have one of those, like, I don't know what they're actually called, but it's like a diet passport where you can go to Mexico or in the US without needing a real passport. Gotcha. But I since it's in the US, I don't need to get one. But next time there's Worlds, which who knows where that will be. I'm definitely going to go. Is
the one next year, is it Seattle?
Yep, Seattle.
I thought I heard that at one of the competitions recently. So, yeah, because I think Harsha, did he go to Worlds last year? Did fly out there to Kirat?
I think so. Yeah, actually, no. Yeah, his flight was delayed, and he almost missed Pyraminx, which was the sad part.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So, he did make it, thankfully.
Oh, that's cool. So you probably have gone to a number of the national. What you just said? What is that called again? The
national championships. Usually they're called either Nats, or now they've started doing continental championships. So in North America, it's just the North American champs, or we just say NAC.
So does it kind of include Canada as well?
Yep, Canada, Mexico, and basically most of Central America. I'm not sure what specifically falls between North America and South America, like if you qualify for South American champs or North American champs, but I think most of Central America is North American champs. Okay.
So another crazy question, sort of, is there any traction of any kind of people trying to get this into the Olympics? This is on topic because the Olympics are going right now and the whole world cubes. I would think a lot of people cube.
So it's actually funny you said that, because the Olympics committee just announced that they're starting an esports commission, which is something that I've been interested in seeing in the Olympics. Now, I'm not much of I used to be a big video gamer. I don't know if it's a new term now, but I cube a lot more than I game now. So that's kind of, I've swapped. But seeing gaming be in the Olympics, which also includes chess, funnily enough, esports is including chess somehow. I don't think it's a far step away to consider cubing as a possibility. I don't think personally that it will happen, just because cubing is, while it was more popular than chess during the 80s, I don't think it's gotten as popular as chess has been throughout all of history.
Sure.
There are games from chess that are talked about from the 1900s that are still common knowledge for people that know a lot about chess. Whereas cubing, somebody that was very fast in the 80s might not be well known today by people that are just starting out. So I think it's possible, especially given the IOC's introduction of esports, but I don't personally see it. I mean, I'm not going to say I wouldn't want it, though. I would love to.
Oh, yeah. It would be, because I'm thinking, is breakdancing really a sport now in the Olympics?
Yeah.
And it is. It's not even a sport, I don't think, that people do outside of the Olympics. Unless they do, I just have no idea because of where I live, I guess, but, and that's such an 80s thing, because I was in the 80s, and yes, I broke dancing. There's no video, so nobody can incriminate on that. But
did you learn from a book?
Me and a buddy got a cassette tape, if anybody remembers them.
Yes.
It was the breakdancing tunes, and it had a fold out that comes down. We stuck it on the wall. It was a bedroom that in the house I grew up in that was empty at the time and did not have carpet. So we took baby powder and all over the floor to make it easy to slide on. We were trying to moonwalk and all that stuff.
You didn't even use socks. You just
yeah. Oh, we had socks. We were nuts.
My
mom walked in. She goes, I don't even want to know what happened in here. Clean it up. Yeah, that was too much. But yeah. So yeah, I would love to see it. But I love to see some of these things have been online. The cubing things like Great Lakes last year. I don't know if it was live or not, but I watched it because I was there. I watched it when I came home.
Yeah, there was a live stream.
Okay, and which I think is great. The more that can be done, I think it's awesome, and that's a growing thing. I do think the sport, I'm going to call it a sport, seems to be catching a in my opinion, like a growth thing. It just seems to be more visible, and it could be just because I'm looking at it. I really don't know, but I feel like it's gaining some traction. Some people, one of my niece's ex-husband, her son, he's a great nephew, I guess he is, or he picked it up, and now he's like 25 seconds already. He's been doing it since January. I'm like, man, you need to go to a comp. You're doing 25, you got to go to a comp. And I can't get him into a comp. But I said, at least go to the one at the place where they give you free pizza. Why not?
Yes, yeah.
So I figure once you go to one, then you're in, you're hooked. So we'll see. But let me see. I had some other questions about. Let's see here. How long, if you have any plans to stick with cubing, either as a hobby or is that something that can be a full-time job? I have no idea how that stuff works.
Yeah. So as a delegate, there are no paid positions in the WCA with only one exception. And that's they have a software engineer that helps out with the website, because even though we're cubers and we're nerds and we're very into computers, we still have trouble with handling the website traffic that the WCA gets. So aside from that one position that is paid, everybody else in the WCA is a volunteer. There have been talks about introducing some sort of system that would allow delegates to get some sort of compensation for the work that they do, which I'm definitely not against, especially as a delegate who travels basically every weekend to go to these competitions. But a majority of it is nonprofit. The WCA is a nonprofit organization, and basically almost every single competition is run either through the WCA as a nonprofit or from regional nonprofit like the Midwest Cubing Association, Southeast Cubing, these smaller but still financially, financially literate, I guess, financial companies or organizations that help out and at least help delegates with the travels if they can't afford it. And so, being a college student, especially, which a lot of delegates are actually college students or just graduated college or around that age, we're not the most financially stable. So we need a little bit of help when it comes to getting these things off the ground, like with getting equipment. I'm not sure if you know how much it costs to get one stack mat display.
Oh, I do. That's why I don't have one.
Yeah, they are not cheap, and having 16 of those costs a lot of money. So
now, do you have 16 yourself because of being a delegate and organizing these things? So you have
yes.
those 16. Okay, I wondered about how that stuff moves around.
Through the MCA, through the Midwest Cube Association, they have. And I also went through the WCA because they have equipment grants for people that are just becoming a delegate, where they give some of the money from dues. Each competition, whenever you register, part of that fee goes to the WCA to help run things. And if they have a surplus, they give some of that surplus to the delegates to help afford equipment. Most likely they go to areas like that where they can't afford competitions in general, like a lot of Latin American competitions, African competitions, some Western Asian competitions, they need the help, so they get priority. But through MCA, the Midwest Cube Association, they helped me with the surplus they had from Midwest competitions. And I didn't get 16. I actually only got 12 displays, but still several $1,000. And it's my responsibility as a delegate to not only maintain it, but also keep bringing them to competitions to be used, and also give them to another delegate if I would step down. So it's not technically my equipment. It's just equipment that's in my possession that, since I am a delegate, it's like being a referee and you need to bring the ball to the game, sort of
thing. I figured, it's not necessarily your property, but you're in charge of it as long as you're a delegate and all that. So and obviously it's a labor of love, if you will. It's so.
Oh yeah, I would not be doing this if I didn't love every second of it.
Right, exactly.
It's so much work. Like I have on my second monitor over here, I have so many different tabs open for all the competitions I'm working on.
Oh wow!
I have my Google Drive open, which has all my budgets in it and everything. Because as a delegate, I have to be way more financially responsible than I ever was as a college student. So it's definitely taught me a lot more about. I learned a lot from my sisters, but even they have still not been as helpful as having just an Excel sheet that I can go to. But,
that makes perfect sense, and it's actually what we call a life lesson, maybe a little earlier than you would have learned it, just because of what you're into. So no doubt,
If I didn't learn it then, I probably would have learned it now. When I probably wouldn't have budgeted as well as I did for my apartment that I just moved into, since I moved out of my university apartment. I wouldn't have been able to budget the trip that I was able to do this past summer. I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things that I have been able and been lucky enough to do. So I'm grateful for it, for sure.
Absolutely. And for those listening, we're going to get into his trip. It was phenomenal to follow on Facebook, and I was so glad you had the idea and took the time to do that, because every day I was looking to see what he was getting into, because there's always the stuff you're doing and all the stuff that you had no idea, like the fire alarm being pulled or whatever it was
on the first day.
I mean, it's that stuff you just can't make up. But speaking of the things that you're doing pretty much every weekend, and you got the screen next to you, how far out in advance now is your latest competition that you already know is going to happen? How far away do you guys plan?
Let's actually see, because I have the individual sites open. So technically speaking, the latest I have planned out is 2,222, but that's just because that is my template comp that I don't want anyone to see. As a delegate, I can make websites, and I can just have one made with all the stuff that I usually use, so I can just reference that. But actually, early 2025 is about how far I have planned out.
Okay, so almost 6 months.
Yeah, about. There are some competitions that don't have websites that are being planned. I think in that regard, next summer, really, because there's all of the regional championships that have to be planned super far in advance. Ohio State championships. Well, we want that to happen this year. Probably can't, just because we don't have enough time between now and December to get that fleshed out. So Ohio State champs 2025 would be something that we would start planning hopefully soon. But yeah, usually competitions, they have to be announced at least 1 month before they happen. but most competitions usually are published 3 to 4 months. Usually, it depends on the area, the frequency.
Yeah, there's definitely some good time on that for those who are interested and have never done it before. You can really plan ahead. It's usually 2 to 3 months or 4 months or so that I've noticed for sure.
Yeah.
You're a delegate. What is above you? Is there like a regional delegate or something like that?
Yeah, so it's actually exactly that, is the regional delegate. So the regional delegate, it depends on whether it's region like in a country. So the U.S. has multiple regional delegates just because of how big it is. Some smaller countries only have one regional delegate, and that's just the whole country. And then above that is the senior delegate, and they are in charge of the region itself. So Matthew Dickman, for example, is the regional senior delegate because he's a regional delegate and a senior delegate of the U.S. He's mainly the regional delegate of the West Coast area, but senior delegate of the Americas, basically.
Okay.
And then above that, really the only position above that is the WCA board, but that's multiple people sharing a board position.
The WCA, so does it reside somewhere? Like how did it start? Is it another country? Was it this country or?
Yeah, so it's fun you're asking me that because I am on the archive team as one of my positions. Like in the WCA, there are a lot of committees and organizations that just do a lot of the tasks like results, competition announcements, and my committee that I'm on is the archive team. So I enjoy talking about the history.
Awesome.
So back in the early 90s, it might have been the later 90s. I'm not sure of the exact date, but Tyson Mao and Ron Van Brookum, I don't think he competed in 1982, but I knew he was around in 1982 when the original World Championship happened, which that is not a WCA competition. It was added after the fact. So the first ever WCA competition was World Champs 2003, and that was before the WCA was even a thing. The first actual WCA comp was Caltech Spring 2004, I think. Don't quote me on the exact competition, but I'm pretty sure it was in 2004. And that is when Tyson Mao and Ron Van Brookum, after having seen or attended Worlds 2003, wanted to actually have an organization that held results, kept the rules in place, everything like that. And the first regulations were written in 2004 August, I think, or no. Oh gosh, I'm like I'm gonna be quizzed now. I think it was 2004. The regulations were written after the first competition because they needed to have like a standard set of rules. But before that, it was just a Yahoo group, an email thread that would just share Rubik's Cube knowledge. Eventually, Tyson just said, "Hey, we should have an organization for this." And from there, it grew almost not exponentially, but it grew pretty quickly. 2004, I think there were only 2 competitions, but then 2005 there were like 10 or 12, I think, and then 2006 there were like dozens. 2007 there were a lot more.
Wow.
I don't know when the first year that 100 competitions happened was, but it was not too far after. I want to say like 2011 or 2010 or something like that. But yeah, since then, WCA has been growing exponentially, especially over COVID when everybody was locked in their house and they didn't have anything to do. So they were like, oh, I've had this for several years. I might as well learn how to solve it. And yeah.
That's another reason why I think things are on the up on that is so many of the younger generation, like my kids, have no idea what ABC, CBS is. Their favorite channels are YouTube channels.
Yes.
So they see this stuff and you do. So cubing is all over YouTube. It's very easy to see that, and it keeps being that way. So I think that's how it's just reaching an audience that you just can't reach. When I was a kid, I tell my kids like, what was your favorite YouTube channel when you were a kid? I'm like, they didn't have that. They didn't have the internet. I'm like, what? Yeah.
My favorite YouTube channel was this one talk show that I would tune in every night at 8 p.m. to watch. Like that's kind of your. I mean, it's also kind of my history. I'm Gen Z, even though I don't like labeling myself as that because I'm on like the late end of it, or I guess early end.
Right.
2001. I'm 22 now, so. Which I'm turning 23 in just under a month, which is crazy to think about.
What day?
August 19th.
Okay, Lexi turns 11 on the 15th.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy early birthday.
Yeah. So,
But back to the history of the WCA, I guess, like the and also COVID exponentially growing that. One of the things that was started in 2020 because of the lockdowns was a thing called Cubing at Home. And that was an online, unofficial series of competitions that were hosted by a lot of WCA staff members, I guess is how I would say it. And it wasn't official. It couldn't be official because it wasn't at a competition. People were recording themselves and submitting the video, so it wasn't as easily delegatable. I don't know if that's the word I would want to use, but it was
not
still,
much control.
Yeah, exactly. It was still such a big event. There were a lot of people. It was one of the first extremely widely watched cubing live streams. I think Nationals 2018 and 2019 were live streamed, but those weren't as popular as the Cubing at Home live streams when it was all kind of hitting off.
Okay.
And from there, people got into cubing, wanted to go to a competition, and once competitions came back, they would fill up in literal seconds.
Wow.
The first competition in Ohio after COVID had a limit of, I think, 20 people because they could only have so many people in the venue because of social distancing, and it filled in under 30 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. So it stuff like that, it exploded the popularity. And I think, like you said, YouTube, and also a lot of cubers that are reaching out to different sponsors, like Max Park was recently sponsored by Prime, which your kids might know
the
what
drink.
Prime is. Yeah, you know what the drink is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was sponsored by that. Some other sponsors are reaching out to other competitors that aren't normal cubing sponsors, like cubing companies like MoU, GAN, all those. Some companies that aren't related to the cubing history are getting involved because it's getting so popular, and it's a really cool thing to see.
Oh man, my kids love Prime because they want to feel like they're drinking an energy drink, but we get them the ones, I don't know if they're all or not, but the ones we get them, they're not energy drinks. They're actually really healthy from a standpoint of sugar and carbs, whatever, and stuff. So, and so they love them. Yeah, they've had, I don't know how many different colors, the white, the blue, the yellow, the green, whatever those flavors are.
It's this generation's Gatorade.
Yeah, basically, yes. Yeah, and I share your sentiment on the labeling because my kids are like, "What generation are you?" And I'm like, "I'm me." Okay, be
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
It doesn't really matter where you're from. I said, all I remember was there was the baby boomers. That's because they had a lot of kids.
Yep.
And those kids are growing up. I said, this Alpha, Gen Z, Gen X, whatever. I said, just be you. Don't worry about who's what, and don't let them say because you're this, you got to be this way. You don't have to do nothing. You don't, So I'm with you on that. I preach that to my kids. Absolutely.
The only thing generations have in common is the years that they grew up in. It's nothing to do with them as a person. Like, I know plenty of Gen Zers that are much less mature or much more mature than I am. And it's not really a reflection of the generation, but just really them as a person. So I totally agree with you there.
Well said. Absolutely. You were at a competition. I have so much stuff to ask you about your trip. We're going to talk about your trip real quick. We want to move a little bit. Braden, I'm going to let you say it because I don't want to mess it up, but what did you decide to do and you planned it? And basically, in a nutshell, tell everybody what you did this summer for basically a month, right?
Yep, it was actually over a month. I was originally planning on it being just under 29 days, but it turned into 34. And I'll explain why. Early, I want to say it was sophomore year of college. It was kind of COVID was getting close to not over, but like the restrictions and everything. And people were starting to plan trips. People were starting to talk about what places they wanted to go. And it inspired me to think of something I wanted to do after I graduated, because I knew, while I wouldn't have too much time, I would have some amount of time after I graduated where I wouldn't have a job, but I would have enough time and hopefully money saved up to do something fun. So I started looking at different theme parks I wanted to go to, since I I've loved theme parks basically all my life, having grown up near Cedar Point, and gone to Cedar Point so many different times. The fact I didn't go to Kings Island until 2022 was insane.
Wow.
But I've always loved roller coasters. I'm a thrill seeker, to some degree, at least. I'm not going to go bungee jumping or anything, but I love roller coasters. I love theme parks. I love everything to do with that. And so that was my starting point. Was in 2022 when I was a sophomore, I was thinking, okay, I want to go to a bunch of different theme parks. I don't care where I'm going to go. I'm just going to find theme parks to go to. And originally, I was thinking I was going to fly out to places because that's what normal people would do. If they're gonna go out somewhere like California, they're gonna fly because driving that whole distance is a nightmare, right? But as I was planning it more and more and realizing how much money I had, it wasn't enough to be able to afford flights for everywhere I wanted to go.
Sure.
So I don't remember when exactly I decided it was going to be a driving trip, but sometime before I decided I was going to make it into a road trip rather than just a theme park trip. So sometime around senior year, I want to say it was winter, is when I started actually like sitting down, made an Excel sheet and planned out everything. And I'm actually going to open that Excel sheet so I have it for reference here.
Cool.
Because I also tracked my budget with it, and I surprisingly almost stayed in budget for, if not for a few things, which I'll say.
Well, usually most budgets are blown in the first weekend, so you did really good, I'm sure.
I definitely overestimated how much some things would cost and underestimated a lot of other things. But one thing that was really funny is until I want to say like April of the year, like April of this year before I left, I completely forgot about gas. I just like completely forgot about that as an expense. Yeah, right. So
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it was, especially since I would be going to California where gas prices are like above $6. That changed a lot of my plans really rapidly. But
sure.
I got my first credit card in 2023 as well. And that's when I started getting points to use for hotels. As I was doing research into what the best hotels would be, what places I was going to stay, what places I was going to go, I was doing research into the season passes of all the parks I wanted to go to, how much money that would save me. And eventually I ended up with this. I don't know if you want me to send you like a screenshot of the map or anything. But
I think, do you have a share at the bottom of your screen?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I think you can do a share and pop it right on. And I can, I think I will either I or you will put it on.
Yeah. So I think it's
here.
Sharing.
It is.
I'm not sure.
I'm going to show it right now.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the map that I kind of made in a software called Furcot, which is like a road trip planning software.
Okay.
Or it's not really software, it's a website. But yeah, I initially, this bit over here, I'll get to in a second, but a lot of these places with the either the link or the hotel are places I stayed or places I went to theme parks. So a lot of these are theme parks or hotels or just like pit stops. And some of the other ones are competitions that I went to. So when I was making the map, the actual places I went didn't have an exact date of when I was going to go because I was planning all of that around competitions that would be in the general area. So,
which I thought was incredibly awesome that you did that.
Yes. And it was lucky too, because I actually, before the competition in California that I went to up here was announced, I was originally going to detour to Salt Lake City because that was the closest competition to these that I was going to, which this would have added so many more hours to the trip, even though this doesn't seem like too much. I would have had to go all the way up here and then down here and up to 40. But they announced a competition in NorCal, so I switched around the directions I was going, basically. So after several months of saving, I started saving back when I was a sophomore, like I said, and I had around $5,500 or so, maybe a little bit more. I don't remember the exact amount, but I had that, and then I also had a couple gift cards that I had got for like graduation gifts and other things that I was able to use. So I had a pretty sizable amount of money to work with. Not necessarily for like an entire month, but for a trip, it was certainly a decent amount. So what I was able to do is I planned out all of the theme parks I would go to. So I went to Six Flags St. Louis. I went to Worlds of Fun, which is in Kansas City. I went to none of these had theme parks. I was going to go to a theme park in Glenwood Springs, I believe is where it is, or it might be Grand Junction. I'm not sure. It was somewhere in Colorado, but the competitions didn't really allow me to sneak up there, so I didn't have time to do that.
Gotcha.
I went to Knott's Berry Farm, which is near LA. I went to Six Flags, Six Flags Magic Mountain as well, which is also LA. Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. California's Great America, which is actually closing down. I don't know if it's next year or sometime soon, but
wow.
I'm very happy I was able to go before it shut down.
No doubt.
I was going to go to to Frontier City, which is in Oklahoma City, but it was closed on the day that I happened to get there. So that was unfortunate.
Sounds like Wally World.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. And then I went to Carowinds down here in South Carolina, King's Dominion up here, and I also went to up here. Oops. And then I went to Six Flags Great America, which is in New Jersey, and then circled back all the way up to home. All of these intermediate stops are just either places I stayed or competitions. So I went on the Colorado Mountain Tour, which was a series of 5 different competitions across I-70 in Colorado. Started in Evergreen, went to this is the Airbnb I stayed at. To Eagle Vale, to Glenwood Springs, Grand Junction. Forget the name of the other place. I have a jacket that has all the places on it. But that was super fun. I got to stay with a bunch of friends that I knew and got to meet a bunch of new friends. I got to meet some people that I hadn't seen in several years because they were also on the tour. Max Park was also on the tour, which was cool to see him. I got to see his world record 4x4 single, which was kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah. And I also went to the competition in Northern California, which was a Bay Area speed cubing competition, which those have been around for several years. They're actually, I think they're on number 64 for Bay Area speed cubing 64. And those competitions are really fun because the community is so old, so grounded that it's very well put together.
Nice.
And they also have in competitions around that area, they're testing a new system called Timebase, which I'm not sure if I posted about that, but yeah.
That's one of the things we're going to ask about. So please tell us about that.
I will stop my yapping in a second.
No problem.
I'll let you talk. But after this competition, I basically drove from Bakersfield, California to not Evansville, Spartansburg, South Carolina in 4 days, which was a lot. I think I averaged about 11 hours of driving a day, which it was a lot. I could have gotten there quicker, honestly, if I didn't spend so much time in Oklahoma City, but storms, counting with the theme park I was supposed to go to, obviously I wanted to spend time there. But since Frontier City was closed, I just went to the Oklahoma City Science Museum, which was actually really cool. I'm glad I was able to go to some place that was fun, I guess.
Sure.
And then after that, just drove through. I don't know why the map has me going down here. I actually went and followed I-40 through Nashville, Cookeville, this area, but ended up here, went to Southeast Championships, which was the regional championship for these few states in the U.S., and then drove up to these competitions, these theme parks, like I said, and then I went to a competition up here in Akron or Green, Ohio. It was Green Summer. So over the entire trip, I went to 8 different competitions, which actually works out to the number of weekends that there were, even though 3 of the competitions were on weekdays. So it was an experience for sure. I was very tired when I got home.
I'm going to bring us back to where the map is gone.
Yes.
So but that was cool. We can put that on there because I definitely liked seeing that. I did want to bring up Timebase, but before that, still on the trip, one thing that I read that I thought was super cool. You met a friend you'd known for a long time, but never met him. Or you knew him from Rocket League, right? Tell us about that.
That was back when I was in high school. It was actually before I was in high school. I started playing Rocket League, and I joined a team, which it wasn't a competitive team like we would actually try and get scores or anything like that. It was a freestyling team, which do you know what that is?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay, perfect. Yes. So it was a team. It was called oh my gosh, I think it was called Storm. It's been 8 years, so it's been a while. But met him from there. We just kept playing Rocket League. Never had met him before because he was from Oklahoma. And I didn't know when I was going to ever go to Oklahoma. So I just
Sure.
knew him from online, but he was one of the only members from that team that I actually didn't stop talking to after I stopped playing Rocket League.
Okay.
He also played a lot of the same video games I did besides Rocket League. So after we both got tired of freestyling, we would both play Apex Legends. We would both play Minecraft. We also played a bunch of other non-video games like chess, even though that was like on the computer. And we just never really stopped like talking after Rocket League. And there were several points where I wanted to go out and make a trip. There was actually a time where he was in Ohio, but I was in Wisconsin. So it was so sad. Yeah, it was like the worst possible timing as well. So because we could have seen each other, but eventually on this trip, I realized, wait a minute, I'm driving through Oklahoma City. There's no way I'm not going to go see him. I don't care how far he is from Oklahoma City, because I actually didn't know where he was from in Oklahoma at the time. And he's from, it's a little bit farther from Oklahoma City. It's Stillwater, if you know where that is.
That's Oklahoma State University's in Stillwater.
Yeah, that's where he went to. He didn't go to college there. He went to a trade school. But it was really good timing as well, because the hotel I was planning on staying in was in a suburb of Oklahoma City where he had a job, because he's an electrician. He was going to do electric work in. So perfect timing all around. I was able to go get breakfast with him, and super cool to meet him. Definitely a lot taller than I thought he was, but it was really cool, especially since like never seen him in person before. I knew what he looked like. We face to face like this
video,
online,
okay,
but never had actually been able to give him a like high five or hug or anything like that. And it was just really cool to meet him. Definitely a unique experience that I haven't had before, especially. I mean, I've had it with people that I've known for some amount of time, like especially online cubing friends. I've seen them for the first time at like nationals, but for Jason, which that's his name, Jason, known him since I was in middle school. Meeting him after I graduated college, it was a bizarre but really cool experience.
It's almost like modern day pen pal type of thing, way back in the days when people would write to people. I actually witnessed years ago, I'm 55, so it was decades ago, I should say, when I was in my 20s, much like you were probably right around your age, 22 or so, a guy I worked at a Sears with in the stock room, he had met a pen pal from Australia for the first time. They've been pen pals since like grade school or something, and then she flew out to this was in Michigan, unfortunately, and they met. So we all met this girl, and we were, everybody's like, you guys have been talking for how many years, and it was just really cool to hear and listen to. So when I read that reminded me of that, and I thought that is so cool. I wondered if you guys probably did a video gaming thing or something, because of the technology now you can do that, before you actually met and stuff. So I figured you probably knew what it looked like, but it's still really cool, to keep lines of communication open for that long, and then so you didn't plan to have that in your trip. You kind of threw it in there when you were going through, or did you know you're going to do that before you actually hit the road to go to Oklahoma City?
So I knew I was going to go through Oklahoma City, and I reached out to him and I was like, hey, do you think you'll be free sometime around this date? I didn't know exactly when I would go through Oklahoma City, but I knew it would happen. And he said that he didn't know, but he wasn't planning on leaving Oklahoma for that month. So he would like let me know if he was available. And I texted him when I got to New Mexico. I was like getting into Albuquerque around like midnight. I was like, hey, by the way, tomorrow I get to Oklahoma City. I'll be leaving Wednesday like afternoon or so. Are you free anytime around there? And he happened to be free. So it worked out really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
New Mexico City. I thought, based on my memory, I thought he was in New Mexico, but it's also, but one of the things you put on your post, I close my eyes, come down to picture it, was the most incredibly severe storm warning I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. That was incredible.
It says something about baseball-sized hail.
Not mess around. Oklahoma storms are insane.
I was reading that to coworkers of mine. I'm like, guys, listen to this. Remember that guy I told you about going around the nation? They're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, listen to that. I read him that little blurb, but says, was it baseball-sized hail or something like that?
Yeah, baseball. The power in our hotel went out like 3 different times. It was It was very. I don't even want to say it was scary, because it was just kind of funny to me. Like, I'm in a hotel room in a state I've never been in. It is storming outside. I don't know if my car windows are shattered or anything like that, but I'm just having a good time. I'm just chilling over here solving a cube. so
this was it was in Oklahoma where that happened,
yes.
right?
Yeah,
Okay,
I was in Oklahoma City. I forget which suburb specifically, but it was very, very. There was no tornado, thankfully. It was just a severe thunderstorm, but
wow,
could have very well been a tornado from how heavy the rain and wind was.
crazy.
Yeah.
Couple of people I work with, listening to a few days of me talking about your endeavors and all that. A couple of them were like, "Is he driving his own car? Or did he rent a car?" So some people want to know: did you put all the miles on your personal car? Or did you rent a car?
Yes, I added, I want to say at least 7,500 miles to my car, maybe a
Wow.
little bit more. I kept tracking the posts. I wanted to
Yeah,
use
you
my
did.
tripometer to actually get an exact count. But after I left Kansas City, I forgot to reset it.
Oh,
And so I just was like, whatever, I'll just estimate on the day. So a lot of the numbers in my posts are estimates, but I went in Google Maps and put in every single address that I could think of that I
right.
went to. So
Okay.
I at least know that it was mostly accurate. And the number on my tripometer, even though it was less than what it actually was, it was still over 7,000, which was
Wow.
a lot.
Oh yeah.
I have a Volvo, so I'm not too concerned about how its health or anything like that. It's a 2016 Volvo, so which thank you, Mom. Um, but it's the mileage is great. First of all, I think I averaged around on the highways, especially. I maybe sped a little. I was getting like maybe 35 miles a gallon, which is pretty good.
Sure.
California definitely a little bit harder to stay in budget when it came to gas, but still overall was able to get some decent fuel efficiency, and I didn't mind the driving, if I'm being honest. I was dreading it after like the third day, because the longest drive I had before California was from Kansas City to Denver in one day, which I want to say was around 9.5 hours, might have been a little bit less, but all in one day did that. And thank you, Kansas, for having 80-mile-an-hour speed limits, because it made it a little bit less unbearable because
Right.
less time. But I was nervous about how much driving I was going to have to do. I told my mom that like if I couldn't do this, I would just try and drive back like the route I came instead of doing the whole thing. But once I got to Colorado, I was like, this is not that bad at all, actually, especially
Yeah.
having friends to drive with during that period. Because
Right,
most of the
right.
driving was by myself. I was by myself, podcasts, music, the occasional like video that I wouldn't watch, but just like put on the passenger seat and listen to. Because
Right.
some YouTubers do really good like podcast-esque videos
Mhm.
where the audio is what you hear, but then the visuals are just like extra, I guess. I don't know how to put it. Listen to a lot of like ratings, a lot of mysteries. It was probably the most I've learned from like non-school in a while. So,
I listened to the podcast that you first mentioned, the
oh
about
yeah,
the hillbilly heist. They
yep,
call
yeah,
it, I think.
the biggest cash heist in U.S. history at the time.
Yeah. So
That one was fun.
because I just a number of years ago, I was kind of like, I don't know, podcasting, I don't know. And I have a radio background. That's kind of why I do this. If it feels my desire to do something I love that I can't do to make money. So I just do this once I was able, like, hey, I got a computer. I'm going to start buying stuff and make my own stuff, So, but I used to be in radio and stuff way back then. So, so a friend of mine's like, you mean, because I drive 45 minutes one way to work every day. So they're like, you should listen to podcasts while you work. Eventually I started getting bored of music and some of the same talk. Sometimes talk's okay, but other times it's like it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
So I started listening to podcasts. So now my wife will tell you I listen to too many Dateline podcasts. So I'm always like, you haven't called me in 5 minutes. What's going on? Dateline is always about murders and stuff. So,
yeah.
my
parents are big Dateline fans as well. So
yeah. So the Hillbilly Heist was awesome. I really enjoyed that one. That was great. So I love the recommendation on that. I totally took that, ran with it.
If you
time
need any
lapse.
other recommendations, I can send you all the stuff I listen to. I can find most of it. I'm sure a lot of it I deleted off of my like road trip playlist, but I'm sure I can find some stuff.
Absolutely. I can share some stuff that I've got with you because
Oh, sure, yeah.
a coworker of mine was listening to someone. What are you listening to? And it's like a podcast called Conspiracy Theories, and it was. And do you know that one?
Love those kinds of podcasts. Love
Well, this particular one, there's so many different topics. The one he was listening to was about some piece of artwork that was made in front of the CIA building, and it has an encryption on it, and all these people are trying to break the code.
Oh my gosh, what's it called?
I can't think of the name.
Exactly what you're talking about, because it's the fourth line or the fourth section that hasn't been decoded. Like the first two have been, but the fourth one's so short. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh my gosh.
So that was incredibly interesting to me. I wish I had the brains to even understand the ones they did decrypt, but I don't.
No, the methods they used, like some of it was like simple-ish, but even then, like I could never wrap my head around that kind of stuff. I can do this. I can do this. I can't. No.
No doubt. So the timing system, what's the first time I've ever even heard of it, let alone seen it, was what you on your post. And then I did see some videos from Minnesota where they were using that. Is that correct? Is that across the board?
Yeah.
Okay. So that looks really cool. Where are we at? And how long will it take to get that embedded into WCA, or will it ever be?
So right now it is really work in progress.
Right.
The developers, there's I'm gonna butcher his name. I'm so sorry, Dan Pachikov. I think it's like a Eastern European name.
Okay.
But and then also Calvin Nielsen, and I believe there's one other person. Sorry for getting your name. But it's a RFID timer system where it's not an actual timer by itself. It does still need the stack mat, which I don't have like an actual stack mat on me, but I have the GAN timer.
I have that one too.
yeah. It's the same thing basically.
Right.
But what it does is instead of having to write down the time on a scorecard like you have at normal competitions, and then you sign your initials, judge signs theirs, all that, it will automatically send your time to WCA Live through like the Wi-Fi. Just right as soon as the judge presses the OK button on it, and then the competitor will scan their ID, and that's the judge signing with pressing the OK, and then the competitor signing by scanning their tag.
Right.
So it's basically automating the whole process so that no one has to sit there and enter in scorecards time by time for the entire competition. Really, really useful, both for like a competitor, not having to worry about the scorecard, not having to worry about forgetting to sign and having your results DNF'd and all that, but also easy for delegates, because on the back end of it, there's so one of the things delegates have to do is we have to log incidents that happen. So a lot of the regulations go over what happens if something like if a puzzle's misaligned, there's a penalty. If you touch the time or touch the cube while stopping the timer, it's a penalty. And there's also things that are out of people's control, like the timer malfunctioning or somebody gets a miss scramble. What I really love about Timebase is there's an entire delegate section to it where you don't have to like write down what happened. There's just a bunch of options you can click, and it's so nice. It's so nice. And so at the end of the competition, you just have a list of like you have all the results compiled right where they need to go. And then with each solve, you have the person who did it, the judge who actually judged them as well, the person who scrambled the cube, because as a scrambler, you scan your own tag to show like I scrambled this correctly. And you have any incidents that happened along with it. And it's a data analytics person's dream. Like it's so well formatted, and I love it. But going back to your question of like how far into the future are we going to see this at competitions? It's actually still going to be a while, just because the WCA has used the same system for 20 years now. Since 2004 is when it like started officially, and it's 2024 now. So still going to be a ways before we actually get something like that implemented. Also, with the WCA's nonprofit status, having what's it called, like a display that's made by a delegate. There's some ethics involved with that where they need to charge a fair amount, something like that. So, and also like reworking all of the regulations to not only accommodate the older equipment with scorecards and the new equipment, but also teaching people how to use it for the first time, teaching new delegates. There's a lot that has to go into it. So I personally, while I really, really want it to be a thing, and other delegates as well really, really love it, there is still some time that has to be put into it. And also there are still some delegates that don't like the system, which, I mean, it's okay to be wrong, but no, I can get their concerns, especially if a competition doesn't have Wi-Fi of any sort, you can't use it because it needs to have Wi-Fi to transfer it from the timers to WCA Live. But the way Calvin gets around that is he just brings a router. Like he brings a router to the venue. So like obviously costs money. If you're Calvin and you are like a computer scientist, sure, go ahead. But for other people, especially people in communities where they can't afford that kind of thing, you do have to remember that some communities are still using Generation 3 timers. We're on Generation 5 now from SpeedStack. And while that's not a bad thing at all, like they can use what they have. We need to still accommodate people that can't afford or can't get the more expensive timers. And having time based like that is going to be a lot more money that people will have to spend.
Good point.
Was that even then? I still really love it. I want to get even just one timer. I would love to bring one time-based timer to Ohio just to show people it because it's
just
so
to have it. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Like the new phone comes out and you want to show everybody. It's like that.
Oh yeah, I don't even know what those things cost, but I would be interested in getting one, but I probably couldn't put it into the budget, so to speak. But was the competition you were at, was that one of the Colorado competitions where that was at?
So it was the Bay Area Speed Cubing one. So I want to say it was Bay Area Speed Cubing 59 was the first one where they showcased it. And they actually had Tyson Mao, one of the founders of the WCA. He did the first like official solve on a time base, and it was really cool because like he started the WCA and now he's participating in like its future. It was a really cool thing. But
was the whole competition using that, or is that just one?
The whole competition. It was. If I remember correctly, it went like 2 hours behind because it was the first time it had been used by like over 100 people, and so like there were many errors that they didn't catch. If I remember correctly, there was one error where it wouldn't count +2s correctly, so a lot of people's times had to be retroactively penalized, which was sad. But they got a lot of the bugs worked out from that competition. At this one that I was at, there were 3 stages. There was black, purple, and then white, and the white stage was the only one that had time base. And the reason that is because there's only a certain number of time-based stations that exist, and the competition had like 400 people, so there's no way we would be able to do it with that. But it was still, or maybe not 400, maybe like 300, but it was still really cool to be able to watch people do it. And also Matty Hiroto Inaba, which for those who don't know, he's a Hawaiian speed cuber. One of the fastest people in the world, surprisingly, even though he's from Hawaii, there's not much competition out there. He has the fastest single and average on time base now, which is not necessarily like a trackable record, but for such a new time system, it's cool to see the fast times people are getting on it. And even Timon, he got 3.9. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Timon now has the fastest average on time base. I forgot because he got the 4.94 average at All Stars, which used time base. And he was next to Matty as well, which was funny now that I think about it. But before that, Matty got a 3.7 and I want to say a 3.5. I don't remember the exact decimals, but 2 3s in the same competition, both of which were on time base, I believe. So still crazy. And it's just a new piece of history that it's like when magnetic cubes came out for the first time, which my first competition, I didn't use a magnetic cube because they just started being produced in 2017. And now the new thing is Bluetooth cubes where you can connect it to your phone, or they have like the magnetic adjustment system, which even that is like still pretty new. So now it's really cool seeing this new part of cubing be introduced, and it'll be cool to see where it is like 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, my first cube was the GAN 11 Pro, and I used that for the
really love the GAN 11.
Yeah, and coming from a Rubik's cube to that, it's like a night and day,
night and day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I used that for the longest time. The longest time meaning probably a few months because I've only been doing this for a little over a year and a half, but it's competition wise. And then I just went through last summer kind of a thing where the Tornado V3. Got to get one, anything was a flagship. I got to get it. So I've got like 4 or 5 flagships of different ones, and then when the Bluetooth came out, I had to get a Bluetooth, so I get a lot of things from AliExpress because they're about $20 to $30 cheaper a lot of times, and I don't care about weight.
AliExpress is a very it's. I mean, if you don't mind the shipping time,
Yeah,
so good in terms of price.
Yeah, I have nothing but time, so I'll just wait till it gets here. But so I do. I currently solve with a 12, and I have a 12 UI to practice with, and I try to have them set up as closely as possible. It's not going to be exact because all the stuff that's inside the UI,
the GAN UI is a lot heavier because of the electronics.
Yeah, and then I saw you had a GAN timer. Do you have a GAN Bluetooth where you have the what's that whatever that app is called?
that Cube Station.
Cube Station, yeah.
Yeah,
They just
changed
it big time.
Yes, yeah. I have the one that's just a carry. It's not like rechargeable. I actually have to physically get a battery to replace it if it dies. But I don't mind that because I use it maybe like once a week or something if I don't want to get out of bed and I just want to reach over, do Bluetooth Cube. So it's definitely a novelty. It's not something I see being in a competition anytime soon just because of the logistics of Bluetooth cubes. But a lot of other people seem to like them as like a competition. What's the word? Like extra thing. There was an online championship in China for Bluetooth cubes, which you probably saw.
I watched it. Yeah,
Timon or someone got a 2, which was crazy.
I think Timon, everything would look right. I think he won like 10 grand doing that because I think he won.
It was really cool.
And
I wish I would have watched the live stream.
It was neat how they set it all up. They're sitting there and everything's connected to their, but I'm sure there was some, because it was not live when I saw it. It was already done and it looked like it had edited. So there might have been some gaps where they had some issues with connections, which makes sense just because, you know, this is all new.
First time doing an event like that, there's going to be issues like with time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, well, we're at about an hour and 5, and honestly, we could probably talk for 2 more hours as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, honestly, I
don't want to hold you that much.
So short. Like, this is great.
Well, I definitely want to do it again. We could talk about some more stuff as well.
Sure.
This is probably the best way to get a hold of you to talk to you because when I see you, you're a busy guy because you're a delegate, and I get it, so it's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So, you got a competition this weekend you're going to, or?
Yes, Eastwood Mall Summer 2024 is being organized by one of my friends, Sean, who I met through cubing. So it's cool that he's organizing a competition that I'm able to delegate. It's kind of coming full circle in a way.
Is that a Columbus area?
No, it's in Warren, Ohio, which is up by Akron. For people that don't know where Akron is, it's by Toledo, or not Toledo, by Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Yeah.
But the Pro Football Hall of Fame is not too far away.
Yes.
I used to go to the Hall of Fame every year about 20 years ago, and we always stayed in Akron because there's at least back then, there was no hotels worth anything in Canton. Like Canton, they're not that great. We got to go to Akron, But so. Hang on, we're going to end this, but just stick around just for a second before you hang up.
Okay.
So,
thank you for having me. By the way, this was great.
Hey, thank you for doing it, and I love that you're not hesitant to talk because it just makes it more interesting. People see me, they know what I got to say. They want to hear the people we're talking to. So, and you had it was excellent. It's one of the better ones I've ever done. There's no doubt about it. So,
you asked great questions, and I'm glad I was able to answer them at least mostly on topic.
You were great. You were great. So, Braden Richards, if you really want to get a hold of him, go to World Cubing Association and just find his name somewhere, and you'll see he's a delegate. He's all over the Ohio area for sure, doing cubing. And is there ever weekends you don't cube without saying, I'm sorry, well, you're not a delegate without actually saying, I'm not going to do this weekend like you did on your trip? Or
So some comps I don't go to, but some comps I go to but don't delegate. There have been very few weekends that I actually haven't gone to a comp, which thankfully I have next weekend off just because I moved into my new apartment, so I've needed some time. But I've had a lot of these competitions planned for several months, so I wasn't able to work around that. I am definitely taking next weekend off for sure, but after that, then it's just comp all the way.
Cool. And then your job, is it Monday through Friday, your DHL job?
Yep. Full
nice.
time. Hopefully staying with it. I don't personally want to leave, obviously, but we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to end this now. So don't forget about the Facebook with the thumbs up and the bells.
Make sure you subscribe to Fletch. He's doing a great job here.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
And we'll be doing more. There's a plenty of good things to look at too. I interviewed a guy who is the Darth Vader and a Chewbacca at
Oh
Comic
yeah, I saw the
Cons.
Chewbacca interview.
Yeah. And then a great guy named John Schumack, who is an
Mm.
absolutely, this is no lie, world renowned astrophotographer. He's right here in Dayton,
Mhm.
Ohio. He's amazing. So until next time, we will see you guys then. And hang on there for a second there, Braden.